She said my name and my whole life changed forever. I walked into therapy broken, angry, and utterly alone. Dear. Reyes had eyes that saw straight through me. One session became two. Became something I couldn't name. Then she told me something that shattered every rule. I have to transfer your case, she whispered, trembling. I didn't know if I was losing her or gaining her. What happened next would cost us both everything we knew. My name is Sarah Whitfield, 32. Living in Chicago. Drowning in grief after my father's sudden death from a heart attack that spring. I never imagined therapy would introduce me to the first person who made me feel truly seen, understood, and quietly, dangerously alive again. I found her. Elena Reyes through a grief support directory. Her photo calm and unremarkable. Her office tucked above a bakery on Clark Street. The first session. I barely spoke. I stared at the rug's pattern and counted my own breaths instead of answering her gentle questions. Take your time, she said. And something about her voice made the room feel smaller, safer. Like a held breath finally released. By the third week, I noticed I was choosing my outfits for Tuesday afternoons, telling myself it was simply self-respect. Nothing more. Elena had a habit of tilting her head when she listened, like my words actually mattered enough to lean toward. I told her about my father's tools still hanging in the garage, untouched. And she didn't rush to fix my sadness with advice. Grief isn't a problem to solve, she said. It's a room you learn to live in. I wrote that sentence down at home. Weeks passed. I started looking forward to Tuesdays more than I looked forward to anything else in my carefully organized, lonely life. One afternoon she laughed at something I said. A real laugh. And I felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through my chest. I told myself therapists were paid to care. I told myself that every single week. And every week I believed it a little less. My best friend Grace noticed the change first. You talk about her more than your dead-end job, she said, only half joking. I brushed it off. But that night I lay awake replaying the exact way Elena's pen tapped against her notepad when she thought. Session 12. She asked if I'd ever loved a woman. I said no. She simply nodded, writing nothing down at all. I started noticing small things. The ring she didn't wear. The way she always chose the chair closest to the window. Why does that matter to you? She asked once, catching me staring. I lied and said I liked the light on her face. Weeks blurred into months of Tuesdays, and my grief slowly reshaped itself into something quieter. Something that made room for other feelings. Feelings I refused to name. Even alone in my apartment. Even as I found myself smiling at nothing while making dinner for one. Elena's questions began shifting subtly. Less clinical. More curious about the person I was becoming rather than the person I had lost. You've changed since we started, she said one evening. You argue with me now. That's good. That means you trust the room. I wanted to tell her it wasn't the room I trusted. It was her steady hands, her patient silences, her impossible kindness. Instead I said nothing. And she let the silence stretch. The way she always did when she sensed I was hiding something true. One rainy Tuesday. Our fingers brushed passing a tissue box, and neither of us moved away fast enough for it to mean nothing. That night I sat in my car outside her building for 20 minutes, unable to explain why I couldn't make myself drive home. I started dreaming about her voice. Ordinary dreams about ordinary conversations, waking with a hollow ache I didn't have language for yet. Grace finally said the word I'd been avoiding. Sarah. I think you might be falling for your therapist. I didn't argue with her. That's insane, I said anyway. Because admitting it meant admitting I'd built my whole week around 50 minutes with a woman who was paid to listen. But insane or not, I counted the days until Tuesday like a teenager. And I hated how much power 1 hour held over me. I decided to test myself. To skip a session and prove the feeling was nothing. I canceled. I regretted it within an hour. Elena called that evening. Unusual for her. Asking simply if I was okay. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. I am fine, I lied. I just needed space. There was a pause so long I thought the call had dropped entirely. Sarah, she finally said. I think we need to talk about something. But not over the phone. Come in tomorrow. Please. I barely slept that night, rehearsing confessions I never intended to make. Terrified she already knew everything I refused to say aloud. Walking into her office the next day felt different. Heavier. Like the air itself understood something was about to shift between us. Elena sat across from me, hands folded tightly, none of her usual composed stillness. I have to be honest with you, she began. I've been unprofessional, she said quietly. I look forward to our sessions in ways I shouldn't. I think about you outside this room. My heart slammed so hard I was sure she could hear it. I feel the same way, I managed. I've felt it for months. She closed her eyes briefly. Relief and fear tangled together on her face. This can't happen while you're my client. It's not ethical. So what do we do? Asked. My voice smaller than I intended. Terrified she'd simply end things and disappear from my life entirely. I have to transfer your case to a colleague, she said. It's the only way we could ever explore this honestly, without harming you. I felt the ground tilt beneath me, joy and grief arriving together, because gaining her meant losing the safest room I'd ever known. Will you still want this? I asked. Once I'm not your patient? Or is this just the strangeness of the moment talking? She reached across the space between us, not touching, just close enough that I felt the warmth of her hand near mine. I've wanted this for weeks, she said. I've just been too afraid of what it means for both of us professionally and personally. We agreed she would refer me to Dr. Marcus Chun, a colleague 2 floors down, effective the following Tuesday, our last official session together. That final hour felt unbearably formal, both of us performing normalcy while something enormous hummed beneath every careful, measured sentence we exchanged. At the door. She hesitated. Text me Wednesday, she said. Once the paperwork clears, then we can just be 2 people. Nothing else. I nodded, unable to speak, and walked to my car feeling like I'd stepped off a cliff into air that might or might not hold me. Wednesday came slower than any day in my life. At noon exactly, I sent her a single text. Officially not your patient anymore. Her reply came within a minute. Then can I take you to dinner tonight? Sarah Whitfield? Not as your therapist. Just as Elena. That first dinner. At a quiet Italian place near Lincoln Park. We talked for 3 hours and never once mentioned therapy or grief. I learned she'd grown up in Milwaukee, the daughter of a nurse and a mechanic, the first in her family to finish graduate school. She learned I collected vinyl records I never played, that I was terrified of moths, that I hadn't dated anyone seriously in 4 years. When she walked me to my car, she asked permission before kissing me, and something about that carefulness undid me completely, entirely. Gladly. Driving home, I laughed out loud alone in my car, giddy and disbelieving, like my life had cracked open into something unexpectedly bright. The next weeks unfolded like a secret held gently between 2 cupped hands, dinners and phone calls and slow, careful discovery of each other. I told Grace everything. She hugged me so hard I nearly toppled over. Finally, she said, I've been waiting for you to be happy. Elena introduced me to her favorite bookstore, a cramped place in Andersonville, where she read poetry to me in a hushed corner. I introduced her to my father's old jazz records, and she listened to Coltrane with her eyes closed, completely, quietly still. We didn't rush physical intimacy, we built trust slowly, the way she taught me to build trust in myself during our sessions. One night she admitted she'd almost referred me to another colleague months earlier, terrified of exactly what eventually happened between us. I'm glad you didn't, I said, tracing the lines of her palm. I don't think I would have survived that year without you. She smiled, but something flickered behind her eyes, a shadow I didn't recognize yet. One I would understand only much later. 2 months in. She introduced me to her mother over video call. And I saw pride and hesitation both cross the older woman's face. She's never brought a girlfriend to a call before, her mother said afterward. And Elena laughed nervously, changing the subject too quickly. I didn't push. Not yet. I was too happy floating in the newness of us to notice the small warnings scattered around me. My own mother, though, was a different story entirely. One I'd been quietly dreading since the moment Elena became more than a secret. I decided to tell her over Sunday dinner. My hands sweating around a glass of water, I barely touched the entire meal. Mom, I'm seeing someone, I started. Her name is Elena. The silence that followed lasted longer than any silence Elena ever taught me to survive. A woman, my mother finally said. Not a question. Just a flat statement heavy with 3 decades of church pews and Sunday sermons. Yes. Mom. A woman. And she makes me happier than I've been since Dad died. My voice shook, but I didn't look away. My mother set down her fork carefully. I need time, she said. This isn't what I pictured for you. I'm sorry. Sarah. I left that dinner hollowed out, and Elena held me on my couch for 2 hours while I cried into her shoulder. She'll come around, Elena said softly, though I could hear the practiced calm of someone who delivered that line to herself before. Has your family always accepted you? I asked. She hesitated. Mostly, she said, though it took my father almost a decade to say the word girlfriend out loud. That answer comforted and unsettled me both. A reminder that love like ours came with a timeline nobody could control or predict. My mother stopped answering my calls for 2 full weeks, and each unanswered ring felt like proof I'd broken something irreparable between us. Elena noticed the toll it took. The way I checked my phone constantly. The way I flinched whenever it stayed dark and silent. You don't have to fix her feelings, Elena reminded me, echoing words she'd once used in our old sessions. You only owe her honesty. At work, whispers started too. A coworker saw us holding hands outside a restaurant and mentioned it too casually the next morning. I worked as a project coordinator at a mid-sized architecture firm, proud of my career, unprepared for how quickly gossip could travel through it. My manager, Diane, called me into her office. Just be careful, she said vaguely. Some clients are old-fashioned. Keep things professional here. I left that meeting furious, humiliated, wondering how many people now saw me differently for loving someone the wrong gender entirely. Elena listened that night without offering easy comfort. Some doors will close, she said. We can only control which rooms we walk into next. Then, 3 months in, a complication arrived that neither of us had anticipated, one that would test everything we'd carefully built together. A woman named Priya Anand filed a complaint with the state licensing board, claiming Elena had pursued a relationship with a current client. The client wasn't me. It was someone from years earlier. A rumor resurrected now that our relationship had become quietly visible around town. Elena went pale reading the letter. This isn't about you, she said quickly. But it could still destroy my license if handled wrong. I didn't fully understand yet what she meant, only that fear had replaced the ease that usually lived in her careful, steady voice. Tell me everything, I said, sitting beside her on the couch, bracing myself for whatever truth she'd been quietly carrying alone. 5 years earlier, before I ever walked into her office, Elena had dated a former client named Rachel, a relationship that ended badly. I followed the same protocol, she said. I transferred her case first. But Rachel later claimed I'd pursued her while still treating her. The board investigated then and cleared her. But the accusation never fully disappeared, resurfacing now like a wound that hadn't healed correctly. Why didn't you tell me? Asked, hurt blooming quietly beneath my worry. You knew this history could resurface. You knew the risk. I was afraid, she admitted. Afraid you'd see me differently. Afraid you'd think our story was just a repeat of something already broken. I sat with that fear for a long moment, feeling the ground shift again, uncertain whether I was angry or simply frightened for her. Is there any truth to what Rachel claimed? I finally asked, needing to hear the answer directly from her, not from rumor. No, Elena said firmly, meeting my eyes without flinching. I followed every rule. But rules don't always protect you from being disbelieved. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But a small, unwelcome doubt had lodged itself somewhere I couldn't quite reach anymore. The board scheduled a formal hearing for the following month, and suddenly our quiet, private happiness became something documented, scrutinized, and public. Elena's colleague Dr. Chen, the one now treating me, was called to testify about the transfer process, about whether protocol had been properly followed. I offered to testify too, but Elena refused. I won't drag you into this, she said. You've already lost enough because of us. That refusal stung more than she realized, like she was protecting me from a fight that was mine to choose, not hers alone. I'm not fragile, I told her sharply. I get to decide what I'm willing to lose for you. Don't take that choice from me. She softened, surprised by my insistence, and for the first time I saw her look at me like an equal, not someone to shield. Meanwhile, my mother finally called, her voice tight and uncertain. I saw the article about the investigation, she said. Is she in trouble? I explained everything, and to my shock, my mother listened without judgment, asking careful questions instead of delivering another disappointed silence. She sounds like she's fighting for something honest, my mother said quietly. I don't understand all of this, Sarah. But I don't want to lose you. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a door cracking open, and I clung to that small warmth through the harder weeks ahead. At work, Diane called me in again, this time more direct. The Hartwell account is uncomfortable with the publicity, she said. We need distance. I realized then that my career might become collateral damage in a fight I hadn't started but refused to abandon regardless of cost. Elena grew withdrawn as the hearing approached, staying late reviewing old session notes, barely eating, sleeping in restless, fragmented stretches beside me. Talk to me, I said one night, finding her staring blankly at her laptop. You don't have to carry this whole thing alone. I'm scared, she finally admitted. Not just of losing my license, of losing you. If this proves I'm someone you shouldn't trust. You haven't lost me, I said, pulling her close. Rachel's accusation isn't proof of anything except that people sometimes lie when they're hurting. But privately, doubt crept louder some nights, a whisper asking whether I truly knew this woman or only the version she'd carefully shown me. I found myself searching old news archives about the Rachel case, needing facts, needing something solid to stand my trust on firmly. What I found matched Elena's version exactly. A cleared investigation, a licensing board statement, Rachel's own inconsistent timeline noted in the official record. Relief washed through me, followed quickly by guilt for having doubted her at all, even quietly, even only inside my own head. I never told Elena I'd searched. Some truths felt better kept as private reassurance rather than confessions that might wound her further. The hearing date arrived, gray and cold, and I sat in the back row despite Elena's earlier objection, refusing to stay away. Rachel testified first, her account emotional but riddled with dates that didn't align with Elena's documented session records from years prior. Dr. Chen testified next, calmly explaining the transfer protocol he'd overseen for my own case, methodical proof of proper professional boundaries maintained. Then Elena spoke, her voice steadier than I expected, describing exactly what she'd told me weeks earlier, without a single detail changed. I watched the board members' faces, searching for verdicts in their expressions, my hands clenched so tightly my nails left small marks. During the recess, Rachel approached me unexpectedly in the hallway. You're the new one, she said bitterly. Be careful. History repeats itself. Her words rattled me more than I wanted to admit, and I spent the recess pacing outside, unable to shake a fresh unease. When the hearing resumed, new evidence emerged. Text messages proving Rachel had pursued Elena after her case was already formally transferred. Rachel's own former roommate testified, reluctantly, that Rachel had admitted fabricating parts of her timeline out of anger after their relationship ended. The board's decision came within the hour. Complaint dismissed. No violation found. Elena's license fully intact. Her professional record officially cleared. Elena exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 5 years. And I finally understood the full weight she'd carried silently until now. Outside the building, she pulled me into a fierce hug. "Thank you for staying," she whispered. "I needed you here more than I said." "I told you," I said. "You don't get to decide alone what I'm willing to fight for. Not anymore. Not with us." We celebrated quietly that night. Just the two of us. Relief settling into something that finally felt like solid, trustworthy ground beneath us. But relief was short-lived. 2 days later, Diane called me into her office one final time. Expression carefully neutral. Folder open before her. "We're restructuring your role," she said. "It's not personal." I knew, without her saying it directly, exactly how personal it truly was. I was let go by Friday. Severance minimal. My 6 years of loyal work erased by whispers I'd never asked to invite. I sat in my car in the parking garage. Done. Angry. Grieving a career alongside everything else I'd already been grieving that year. Elena found me there an hour later, having driven straight over after my shaky phone call. She didn't say anything. She just held me. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said quietly. "That loving me would cost you everything you'd built for yourself." "It cost me a job," I said firmly. "Not everything. Don't confuse the two. Elena. I'm still standing here. Still choosing you. Though the loss unsettled something between us. A fresh strain neither of us had anticipated after surviving the hearing together. Unscathed. I filed for unemployment, updated my resume, and spent restless weeks applying to firms while Elena quietly resumed her full practice again. Money grew tight. I moved in with Elena earlier than planned, practically rather than romantically, though the practicality didn't dull the significance entirely. Living together revealed new frictions. Her late hours, my irritability during the job search, small disagreements neither of us had energy to soften. One evening I snapped over something trivial. The dishes left in the sink, and years of unspoken tension spilled out unexpectedly between us. "I feel like I ruined your life," I said, tears coming fast. "Your reputation. My job. My mother barely speaking to me." "You didn't ruin anything," Elena said firmly. "Love doesn't ruin lives. Other people's fear does. Don't hand them that power over us." Her words steadied me, though the fight left a residue that took days of careful, patient conversation to fully clear between us. My mother, meanwhile, surprised me by inviting us both to Sunday dinner. Her first real gesture toward genuinely knowing Elena as family. The dinner was stiff at first. My mother asking careful, formal questions. Elena answering with practiced patience honed from years of difficult conversations. By dessert, something shifted. My mother laughed at one of Elena's jokes. A real laugh. And I felt tension unclench in my chest. Walking us out, my mother hugged Elena briefly, awkwardly. "Take care of my daughter," she said. "She's been through enough this year." In the car, Elena cried quieter tears than I'd ever seen from her. "I didn't expect that," she admitted. "I didn't expect to matter to her." That small acceptance became a turning point. A thread of hope woven through months that had otherwise tested us relentlessly. Repeatedly. Thoroughly. I finally landed a new job at a smaller firm, less prestigious but kinder. A fresh start built without the weight of old rumors. Elena's practice grew steadier too, her name slowly disentangling from the old complaint as new clients came through honest, unrelated referrals. We settled into a rhythm. Tuesday dinners that echoed our earliest ones, though now filled with easy laughter instead of careful boundaries. 6 months after moving in together, Elena mentioned casually that her father was finally coming to visit, ready to meet me properly. I panicked slightly. What if he doesn't approve? Elena squeezed my hand. He raised me to choose honesty over approval. He'll come around. Her father arrived gruff but warm, studying me carefully over dinner before finally saying, "You make her laugh more than I've heard in years." That night, alone, Elena told me something new. She wanted to eventually open a joint wellness practice, therapy paired with community support work. With me. Asked, surprised. "You have a project management background," she said. "I need someone who can actually build the thing I keep dreaming about." The idea took root quickly, filling our evenings with sketched floor plans, budget spreadsheets, and long conversations about the clients we hoped to serve. We found a small storefront near Andersonville, close to the bookstore where our first real date had unfolded months earlier. Securing the lease required both our names, both our incomes, a level of public commitment neither of us had discussed quite so plainly before. Signing the paperwork, Elena looked at me seriously. "This is real now," she said. "Are you sure this is the life you want?" "I've never been surer of anything," I said, and meant it completely, without the flicker of doubt that had haunted me months earlier. Renovations took longer than expected, budgets stretched thin, and old anxieties resurfaced during the stress of building something so publicly ours together. One night, exhausted from a contractor dispute, I lashed out unfairly. Maybe this was too much, too fast. For both of us. Elena didn't argue back. She simply asked, "Do you actually believe that? Or are you just scared of how much this matters to you?" Her question cut through my anger instantly. I sat with it, ashamed, recognizing fear disguised as doubt, an old habit resurfacing under pressure. "I'm scared of losing this," I admitted quietly. "Everything good in my life lately has come with a cost. I keep waiting for the bill." "Then let's pay it together," she said simply. "Instead of you flinching alone every time something good actually happens to us." We repaired that fight faster than any before it, both of us finally fluent in a language built from months of hard-won honesty. The grand opening approached. Invitations sent to family, old clients, colleagues, even Dr. Chen, who'd become an unexpected friend through everything survived. My mother RSVP'd yes before I'd even finished asking. A small detail that meant more to me than any grand gesture could. The night before opening, Elena handed me a small velvet box, nervous in a way I'd never seen from her before, not even during the hearing. "This isn't a proposal," she clarified quickly, laughing at my expression. "It's a promise ring. I wanted something before the world walked in tomorrow." I slid it on, hands trembling slightly, understanding suddenly that this ordinary Tuesday had become the most important night of my entire life. "When you're ready for the other kind of ring," she said, "I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. Sarah." Not after everything. Opening day arrived bright and unexpectedly warm for late autumn, the storefront windows catching sunlight across our freshly painted sign, "Whitfield Reyes Wellness." My mother arrived early, helping arrange chairs, hugging Elena's father like an old friend, small proof of how far both families had traveled. Grace showed up with flowers and tears, hugging me tightly. "You built this," she said. "All of it. Don't ever forget that." Even Diane, my old manager, sent a quiet card wishing us luck, an unexpected gesture that closed an old wound I hadn't realized still ached. Rachel never appeared, never reached out again, her presence fading finally into the past where old fears eventually, mercifully, Belong. Clients trickled in throughout the day. Curious neighbors. Referrals from Dr. Chen. People cautiously hopeful about a space built on genuine understanding. By evening, exhausted and elated, Elena and I stood alone in the empty storefront. String lights glowing above the reception desk we'd built ourselves. Do you remember our first session? She asked. You wouldn't even look at me. Now look at us. Standing in our own building. I remember everything, I said. Every Tuesday. Every risk. Every moment I almost let fear win instead of choosing this. Choosing you. She kissed me slowly. Unhurried. The same careful permission she'd asked for on our very first night. Still present even now. Outside. Chicago streetlights flickered on one by one. Ordinary and unremarkable. Illuminating a life neither of us had dared imagine 2 years earlier. I thought of my father then. Of his tools still hanging untouched. And felt certain. Somehow. That he would have loved her too. My mother texted that night. Proud of you. Both of you. Took me a while. But I finally see what you saw all along. I read it twice. Tears blurring the screen. Before showing Elena. Who smiled softly and pulled me closer against her shoulder. We didn't get here by luck. We got here through hard conversations. Lost jobs. Cleared hearings. And a stubborn refusal to disappear from each other. Love, I learned, wasn't the absence of difficulty. It was choosing someone through every difficulty. Deliberately. Repeatedly. Without needing certainty guaranteed in advance. Elena once told me grief was a room you learn to live in. I understood now that love, real love, required the same patient courage. A year later, we'd expand Whitfield Reyes Wellness to a second location, hire 2 more therapists, and host a Tuesday grief group for others. Sometimes a nervous new client would sit exactly where I once sat, staring at the rug, unable to speak, and I'd remember everything. I would tell them what Elena once told me. Take your time. This room is safe. And some of the best things start quietly. We built a life neither of us was promised. Out of one small office, one honest confession, and a love worth every risk taken. Then